Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I have read so far this year. So according to my Goodreads reading challenge for the year, I have actually read 17 books, but in actuality it's really 18 because I totally forgot to record my reread of Gemina on here, so 18 books. Plus I'm in the middle of 3 right now, well technically 2, but I'm gonna say 3. So it's a little bit more than 17, but regardless, I'm just gonna talk about the ones that I've completely finished. That's gonna be this video. I don't know why I decided to do this. I feel like because I don't make a book talk or a review for every single one of these books that I've read, that it would be a good thing to just talk about them a little bit so you knew exactly what my thoughts were behind them. So that's what I'm here to— oh, I just hit my lamp. So that's what I'm here to do today, and let's get started. So the first book that I read this year, and I'm not sure if any of you know this because I didn't ever talk about it on my channel, but it was actually Warcross by Marie Lu. So I ended up giving Warcross 4 out of 5 stars. It was really, really good. I don't know what I expected from it, but it wasn't what actually happened. The one thing that I will say is that I actually stayed up and I read this in one sitting, just straight 8 hours. It's, you know, as everybody probably already knows, all about this virtual reality video game and this competition that's happening, and Amika is awesome and serves as like this spy to try to catch this hacker, and it just takes so many twists and turns that you just don't expect that I really, really loved it. And I'm really eager for a wild card, which is the second book to this. It's a duology, a series, I don't know what it is, but it's coming out this year or next year. I really should know more than I do when I film these things, but I don't. And then because at that point I was a little bit into the sci-fi video game thing, I decided to pick up Ready Player One, which I had had on my shelf for a year or two at this point. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed it. It was the same kind of virtual reality video game that was happening, except this time all the players were in a competition. I don't know, to win the guy's fortune or something. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I really liked it. A lot of people say that they like it because it has so many like 80s references and things like that. The whole book is just submersed in 80s pop culture, and it's really, really great. And then those were the only 2 books that I got in before my semester started. So cue all of the very weird and obscure, you know, sci-fi spec fiction books that I'm about to show. So first up is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This was all about this guy who was going to this other planet to do research or something, and it, you know, talks and makes you think about what is it, gender and gender roles in society and what gender really means, and is it really just, you know, a thing, or is it a social construct, and it's that kind of thing. I think I gave it 3 stars. Yeah, a lot of the times I really just didn't understand what was happening. There was literally no explanation of anything that was happening in this new world, so you just kind of had to like go into it and try to figure it out yourself. I was just kind of thrown for a loop here, so 3 stars. Then after that I had to read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood for my class. So I gave this one 3 stars as well, though it was probably more of a 3.5 for me. I did enjoy it. I thought that it was really interesting, the points that she made, and, you know, I could definitely see this happening at some point. Like, it's just, parts of our society just make me think that, you know, this is very realistic. Granted, it is like the extreme of what we're dealing with now, but I mean, just the fact that we're dealing with it makes it at least somehow realistic to me. Again, when I read these kind of books, I don't really understand the like nuances that the author is trying to get to until I start analyzing it with people who actually do understand it, aka my class and my professor. So reading this book, I had no idea what I was supposed to get out of it, so that's why I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm just not that kind of person who can read into something really, really deeply and very easily. So then I ended up rereading Illuminae by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman on audiobook. It was really good, 5 stars as usual. I absolutely love this series if you haven't heard enough about it already. And turns out I actually read 19 books this year so far because I forgot to record this one on Goodreads too. I had to read Wild Seed by Octavia Butler this year for my class, and I hated this book and I gave it 1 star, and it was just not good to me that I didn't even bother recording it on Goodreads. I know that some people will read this and absolutely love it and cherish it and everything, and I really appreciate and respect what Octavia Butler did for the sci-fi world. She, I think, was one of the first women of color sci-fi writers who really made it somewhere. I just did not like the book, and I apologize, but I didn't understand it, and I didn't know what was going on, and I hated both of the main characters, and it was just very weird, so I'm sorry. So then I reread Gemina on audiobook, which, you know, same thing with Illuminae. I loved it, 5 stars, reread it for the Obsidio, you know, 3rd book that was coming out. And then the next book I actually have listed on my Goodreads was Obsidio. Like I said, 3rd book in the Illuminae Files. I read this almost as soon as it came out. I think I took it to Charleston and I read it after I was done with my Gemina reread, which is a few days after it came out, I think. Don't quote me on that. But I have a whole reading vlog up for this if you haven't seen or heard of it yet. I just absolutely adored this book, 5 stars as usual. The characters were awesome. The way that the entire story and the plot came together with all 6 of the characters that we followed, it was really, really amazing. And overall, just all the twists and turns, I just absolutely loved them. I'm definitely gonna be rereading this in the future, if not by the end of the year, because I just like, it's so good. Oh my god, make that 20 books! I'm so bad at recording some things on Goodreads, guys. I don't even understand. I also read Nalo Hopkinson's Midnight Robber. I've actually talked about this on my channel before, so here it is again. I'm not gonna go through it. I think I gave it 3 stars, or I didn't give it anything. If I'm gonna give it something, I'm gonna give it 2 stars, because I, again, as usual, didn't understand what was happening, and a lot of the things in it were just very confusing to me. I didn't get a lot of the references that she was trying to make, but the story I understood. I guess the plot of what was happening. I just didn't really get the world, and I never really did, and I think I skimmed it so quickly so I could just be done with it that I didn't bother taking a lot of it in. So I apologize if anybody actually likes this book, but I did not enjoy it, so 2 stars. We're just gonna go through the rest of my school books so that get the boring stuff out of the way. After Nalo Hopkinson's, I read Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. I think I gave this 3 stars. I don't even remember. I gave this one 3 stars as well, but it's definitely more of a 3.5 because I do remember enjoying a portion of it. The very, very beginning, super, super confusing, especially because our main character is from a planet that does not specify gender, so everybody is just, you know, generically she. Everybody. So the main character who we follow is calling everybody she, and you're automatically assuming that it's a woman when after they get done, you know, with descriptions and with, you know, descriptions of body language and things like that, you realize that it's actually a man and you're like, what is happening here? And it just really, really makes you question, you know, gender as a social construct again, as we've talked about in the book before. After I got about halfway through, it actually did get really good. I understood what was happening. If I had the 2nd book on hand, I maybe would have started it after this book. I probably won't now because I couldn't care less at this point, 3 months later. But I did enjoy at least the last half of it. And then the final book that I read for school, which honestly didn't even feel like a school book to me because I liked it that much, was The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I remember when I was talking about this on my channel before I had read it, that a lot of people said that they liked it, that I would like it, and you guys were not wrong. I really, really loved this book. The beginning, like I said, was super confusing, as with all of these books, but this is the one book that I actually started to understand what was happening very early on and was able to just keep reading and devouring it, and I think I finished like the last half of the book in a single sitting. The author, N.K. Jemisin, again, is a, you know, woman of color. She's black, and she's writing in this, you know, sci-fi genre, which is not usually open to women, let alone women of color. She wrote this either after the Trayvon Martin incident or the Mike Brown incident, one of those two. I can't remember exactly which one, but the entire story is just bathed in oppression and systemic racism in this sci-fi world, and it really, really makes you look at our world, and I don't even know another way to explain it. If you haven't read this book yet, I highly suggest that you do. It's got magic in it. It's a fantasy, like, for sure. It's definitely more fantasy, I would say, than scientific, like sci-fi. It's just really, really good, and I definitely would recommend it. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed it. So the first book that I finished after all my school reading was Arusha and the End of Time by Roshni Chokshi. You've heard about this book enough on my channel already. I have a book talk up for it. I can leave it linked down below if you're interested. Basically, it is a Hindu Indian mythology centered book. It follows Arusha as she finds out she is related to the gods and has to go on this quest to save the world. It's basically like a Percy Jackson but Hindu, and it's awesome. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. It just took me a really long time to finish, which means that I wasn't super like into the book at first. It was really funny at times, and I love the characters, and overall I definitely recommend if you're looking for like a mythological kind of based middle grade fun read. It's really fun. Then I read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This was one of everybody's most anticipated releases of the year. The only reason I didn't include it in my anticipated 2018 releases is because I didn't even know it was a thing until I started hearing everybody else talk about it, and then I was like, dang. Missed opportunity. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars at first. Looking back on it, I think I might lower it to a 4.5. Honestly, it's more of a 4.75. There was like one thing that I had a problem with, just one itty bitty tiny thing, and it was one of the characters, and I mentioned it in my book talk that I've had filmed for weeks and have yet to upload. So if it is uploaded by the time that this video goes up, I'll leave it linked down below. But a majority of this book I absolutely loved and cherished, and it was amazing, and I can't wait for the next book. If you haven't heard or don't know what this book is about, it's basically about this race of magi who obviously look like this, have the white hair. Their race has basically been exterminated. This king is kind of ruling over their land, and they have been, you know, succumbed to oppression. They've just been pushed down and just battered their entire lives. And so this one girl, Zeely, has this plan to bring magic back. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. Then I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, which I've been saying that I've wanted to read and I just haven't, and I finally got to it. And I'm really happy that I'm making this video because I finally get to talk about this book. I wasn't planning on making a book talk for it, so this is my chance to share my thoughts. On Goodreads, if you are friends with me there, you have noticed that I've probably given this 3 stars, which is a first for, I'm pretty sure, any kind of a YA fantasy. I usually really enjoy them, and this book I just didn't enjoy that much. For me, it was mostly the main character and the relationship to Carden, who is the cruel prince, the prince of the book. So our main character, Jude, I just wasn't a huge fan of her. I didn't enjoy reading from her perspective. I didn't, you know, quite agree with a lot of the choices that she made, and a lot of the things that she did were very questionable to me, and a lot of her decisions didn't make sense to me, I guess, so I wasn't a huge fan of her point of view and listening to her thoughts, just because I've gotten yelled at before by saying things that are not even mildly spoilery without giving a spoiler warning. Here it is. If you don't want to hear absolutely anything about this book whatsoever before going into it, mute until I put the book down. It's not even going to be mildly spoilery, but, you know. Some people are gonna get mad, so here we go. The other reason that I didn't like this book was her relationship with Carden. It was just weird, and there was a time where you knew something was going to happen. From the beginning, you know it's gonna happen. They hate each other. Obviously, it's gonna be kind of an enemies to lovers scenario here, and they do. It happens at some point. There's like a little tiny moment where something happens, and then it doesn't actually happen, and then it just drops and is never spoken of again. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. What happened at the end of the book really doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So that's why the 3 stars. So then I read Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi, and this I actually read in one sitting as well. I read it in one day, and I really liked it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved both of the main characters, and I love their text messages to each other. I love when a book incorporates some kind of a technology, you know, element to it. I don't have anything else to say. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I really liked Penny, and I really liked Sam. Sam is a baker. I like bakers. The next book that I read was When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon, which I read in like 2 days, not even. Again, this was a moment where I was just like, read a book, finish, read a book, finish, read a book, finish, read a book, finish. I don't know what was happening with me, but that's what I was doing a few weeks ago. Again, another, I think, 4-star book I gave this. It was super adorable, so sweet. I loved it to pieces. I thought that it was so funny. Parts of this was so funny. And what I really loved about this the most was the switching of perspectives within chapters. So you'd have a chapter and you'd see a scene, but you'd see it both from Rishi and Dimple's point of view, like back to forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it was really fun to kind of get that and see what they were both feeling at the same time. So the next book that I read was A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, which I have yet to make a book talk for. I really liked this book. But not as much as I thought that I would, which I think is the general consensus among everybody who's read this, at least as far as I can tell. There are people who really liked it, there are people who really hated it, and then there are people like me who just were like, eh. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really hate the Goodreads rating system because if I could change that, which I mean I can, but if I could go back, now looking back on this book, I would probably have given it 4 stars. First thing that bothered me, It's very, very petty of me. I'm sorry. But we were told this story from 4 different perspectives. It was Feyre and Rhys, and then it was Cassian, and it was Morrigan. Can somebody tell me why Feyre and Rhys were told in first person and Morrigan and Cassian were told in third person? I don't understand why that happened. Why couldn't they have all been in first person or all been in third person? I just don't get why that had to be a thing. It threw me off, and it made me really, like, it made it hard for me to get back into that perspective as I was flipping back and forth. What I really did like about it, though, was that it did close off the relationship between Feyre and Rhys. They kind of got their full circle closed ending, and I really enjoyed that. Though I am, at this point, partially sick of reading about them, so I'm really excited for the next book because it's not going to be focused on them. And I just, like, I love them as much as the next person. I do, I really do. But I think it's time to give another character a spotlight now. So my edition came with a sneak peek of the next book, which I think was told in Nesta's and Cassian's point of view. So if that's who we're following, that makes me super excited because Nesta was a total bitch and just really weird in this book. I know that she was suffering from some kind of like a PTSD, I'm pretty sure. I felt bad for her most of the time. I really did. So I really don't want to feel that way about her. I want her to be her kick-ass self again, and I'm ready for that to happen. But all in all, I really did like how it kind of closed off their relationship. It led them to a very nice ending, and I'm just excited to see more characters soon. So after ACOFAS, I read 6 of Crows on audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. I know that I've said last year that I started trying to read this book, and I got 60 pages in. My bookmark is still in the book, guys. You can see it. And I just stopped. I DNF'd it. I couldn't finish, and it was just so boring, and I don't know what happened. But I listened to it on audiobook while I was driving to work every morning, and oh my god, it's so good. Like 5 stars here. I can't. I do have a full set of notes up for this book, so you'll probably be seeing a book talk for this sometime soon. I haven't filmed it yet. I don't know why. It's been like a week and a half since I finished this. Or no, more than that. 2 weeks, maybe 3? I don't know. But all in all, I really loved it. I really love the plot. I love the characters even more. Didn't know that there was a Matthias in this book until I started reading it, so that was fun. You'll get more about that in my book talk. And by the way, one of the books that I'm currently in the middle of is Crooked Kingdom. I'm about 6 hours into the audiobook, maybe even 7. I haven't checked in a while, but it's so good so far. It's so good. So after 6 of Crows, I read City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is an arc of the book that was generously sent to me by the other Ashley, which is what I call her. She's Ashley Outpaged on YouTube if you want to look her up. But she was so lovely. She works at a bookstore. She got an arc for herself, and I was super jealous. And then she went to North Texas Teen Book Festival and got another arc and sent it to me. And I love you to pieces, Ashley. I love you. Just want you to know that. This book was so adorable. Gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. If you don't already know, this is Victoria Schwab's new middle grade book that's coming out in August. It is about this girl named Cassidy. Oh my god, I almost forgot her name. Cassidy, who can see ghosts and who can go into the land of the dead, that kind of thing. And her parents are inspectors. They really enjoy ghost stories and writing novels and books about ghosts and, you know, the stories behind them. And one day they land a gig in a TV show and they go to Edinburgh as their first ghost scouting location. Cassidy comes along and just goes for a wild ride in one of the world's most haunted cities. So it's really fun and really creepy and dark at times. There were times when I was like, oh! All in all, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Really looking forward to getting my hand on a hardcover copy because it's just gonna be so pretty. I'm so excited. And the final book that I have finished so far in this first half of 2018 is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I did this as a reread because I am preparing for a Reaper at the Gates. As I mentioned in my series I've never finished video, this is one series that I read this book and then I never moved on to the next one. Well, that's changing because I'm currently in the middle of A Torch Against the Night and it is very good. Again, An Ember in the Ashes. I think the first time that I read it, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars or 4.5. This time it was a pure 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I knew what to expect. I knew the world. I knew the story, and just rereading it, I got into it so much quicker and just loved every second of it. Laia is amazing. I love Elias. I don't much like Helene, but we get her point of view in A Torch Against the Night, and I do kind of like her a little bit more now. I don't know what happens in A Torch Against the Night. I'm only halfway through, so please don't spoil me. I'm super, super excited, and people have just been going crazy over A Reaper at the Gate, and so I'm just like, oh, I'm so excited for this. You don't even understand. If you haven't picked up this series yet, highly, 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 highly recommend it. I already put it back, but I guess I could talk about what it's about a little bit. It's like a high fantasy based off of old Roman history, that kind of thing. But we follow Laia, who is part of the oppressed scholar, not race, but kind of group, I guess you would say. They're kind of oppressed by the marshals, who are this upper class, high, battle waging warrior class. It is all about Laia, who is a slave for the resistance of the scholars, and she kind of infiltrates the school that teaches the masks that are the marshals, the really tough warriors, and Elias, who is a mask and hates everything that the Empire stands for, and just their story together. And it's a dual point of view, and it's super, super good, and if you haven't read it yet, highly, highly suggest it. And those are all of the books that I've read this year, you guys. That is 20 books plus a little snippets of the few that I'm currently in the middle of. Number one so far that I've read this year is Obsidio. If I'm talking about books that are like beginning of series, I guess I would say Six of Crows. And then a reread would be an Ember in the Ashes. But Obsidio, man, Obsidio was so good. Let me know if you guys have a favorite book that you've read so far this year, and if you are, I guess, satisfied with the number of books you've read this year. I'm pretty satisfied, especially because my semester at school, the first semester this past beginning of the year, was really, really challenging and left me with not a lot of time to read. So I'm really happy with what I did get done, and I'm really looking forward to all the books that I'm gonna be reading this year. I actually graduate in December, so I'm really, really looking forward to that, so that I can just be done with school and have all of the time in the world to do whatever I want. So that is going to be it for this video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later. Goodbye!